For tonight's welcome our guests here. I would like to say welcome to the Minister of Youth and Sports Development, Mr. Solomon Dalung. Thanks for being here, Minister.
Thank you very much.
Let me also welcome Jide Fashikun, who is Managing Editor of GongNews.net. It's an online publication. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
All right. Also, welcome to Emmanuel Zira. He is chairman of Adamawa United Football Club of Eula. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. Good evening, viewers.
And we are joined tonight by Ostel Elubelu, who is a sports administrator. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Let's refresh your memory about the procedure of this program. At the appropriate time, you can get to be part of the discussion in the studio. The various platforms will be on your screens. You can take advantage of them. But for those who will be calling in, who will be phoning in, we say this all the time. At the appropriate time, when your call gets through, do us a favor, turn down the volume of your TV set. It's something that's, by now, it should be well known to everyone. Just reduce the volume of your TV set. That's the way to avoid the hurlback or the echo. And the best way to know that your call has been passed through, your name will appear on screen. Once you see your name on screen, it means that your call is through to the studio. Just go straight away, make your comment, ask your question, don't bother about the greetings. It means that you're right on air. So, and we also advise that you keep it as short as possible so others can also get on the platform. Once again, welcome to NTA Tuesday Live. Tonight, sports development in Nigeria and, of course, the seemingly never-ending crisis in Nigeria's football house. Well, Minister, we're starting off with football expectedly. And Nigeria was in Russia at the World Cup. What have you to say about our outing in Russia?
Well, let me begin by saying that the outing in Russia, to me, even though it did not live up to the expectation of Nigerians, but I think it was a worthy adventure. If you look at the build-up to Russia, the qualifying matches, the performance of the team, the issues of welfare of the team, to the World Cup, well, it was amazing and it was okay. But I think what happened in Russia basically, to me, which I think were more or less technical issues as I observe, was, let's take our match with Argentina. We were at a draw at the 85th minute. And at that point, Argentina was busy building up and changing their players. They were attacking aggressively, and they also were changing players. We, who needed a draw to qualify to the next level, could not effect changes. Even when I was raising alarm and saying, look, please, let's do something, because some of our players were already exhausted and were not living up to expectation. And that could not come until when we lost, that we now effected the changes. That was a technical issue which I thought, if something was done in time, could have also saved us the earlier exit. But I think, like it has been argued, that it's a young team and we need, they lack the requisite experience of participation. I don't seem to share that much. Those we played with are human beings. They have two legs. So some of the minor mistakes in terms of our organization contributed in our early exit, but the team actually did their best.
All right, we'll come back to you, but let's go over to Jide Fashiku and say, what are the takeaways from Russia?
Russia, I think, is one event that if we also quickly do a comparison to how we came in 1994, and we also look at how we also missed out of the World Cup preparation in 2006. It shows that if at any point in time we do adequate preparations, and adequate preparations is not usually on the eve of the World Cup. If we do a 4-year preparation, we will always do well when we get to the World Cup itself. Ahead of 1994, when we went to the World Cup for the first time, Clemens Westerhoff had 5 years. And there was stability in the technical crew. And there was so much support to also ensure that they mature. So by the time we get to the World Cup, we were not struggling. We were actually one of the most favored teams. And that has always been one issue we have. And in preparing ahead of 2018, we also must first of all establish the fact that we have to really work for the 2022 World Cup. And that also requires our ability to be able to also create a playing philosophy, stability in our technical team, and the opportunities we also give our players to also be able to experiment. Because again, Nigerians, we are always very angry when especially our teams play in friendlies and they are not winning. Friendlies are not meant to be won. They are actually meant to allow the technical crew room to experiment with the players.
Okay. Well, Emmanuel Zira, there are about 170, 180 million football coaches in Nigeria.
No, that's right. I was arguing with somebody in Russia, and I said as many as the number of people that were in the stadium that day, that is actually the number of coaches you have on the pitch. But like the Honourable Minister said, frankly speaking, there are a lot of positives to take away from the Russia 2018. The preparations were good. For the first time, all that were needed were provided to the team. We couldn't fault anything, in terms of incentives and what have you. But basically, it was truly a technical deficiency that was observed. Even that day, on the day of the match, as we were watching, we saw, like the Honourable Minister said, truly Argentina making tactical changes because they knew they needed a win. Whatever it was, the scoreline, all they needed was a win. And all we needed was a draw. At 85, 4.5 minutes to go, we are on our knees praying. Can we push this through the line? Can we push this across the line? And we saw the changes being made. And immediately we saw our own changes coming in. I told the people that were staying, I said, we're going to lose this match. They said, why? I said, look at the changes that we're making. Argentina were making tactical changes to win the match. And they brought in their some of their deadliest strikers towards the time that we were tiring. And instead of us to come up with a plan, to be able to hold our own, we couldn't. So eventually we have to cave in. And it was very painful considering the fact that after our match with Croatia, expectedly, even though we thought that at least we could have, gotten a draw to that match, but even when we lost, they rallied back to win their match against Iceland, and we thought, yes, Argentina, we beat Argentina, on a non-competitive, basis. So we felt that at least we had that advantage going into the match against Argentina, and frankly, we did not expect that Argentina was going to win the match, but they won. And we finished where we finished. And I think it was a disastrous feeling for us because we were hopeful that we were even going to get to the quarterfinals, considering the preparations, the incentives, and the minister left no stone unturned, frankly, to see that, the team achieved what they needed to achieve at the finals. And I give the NFF kudos as well, for having done what they needed to do in terms of, getting quality-friendly matches for the first time. We are playing grade A friendly matches towards, the World Cup. And like Jide said, it is not about winning. When Westerhoff came to Nigeria, his first match we lost about 8-0. And he said, no, please, I'm not here to win all friendly matches. I'm building for the future. And when we went to the USA 94, you could see the performance. We got to, I think, almost the third round or so. And it was it still remains our best performance in the World Cup till today.
Well, all right, let's come to you. Hostel, was it that we're relying too much on what is popularly referred to as the permutations? If this gets through, then we have this number of points and, you know, we can qualify on X that. Why not go straight and garner those points yourself?
You know, Cyril, all they've said, well, I share in the sentiments, but we have refused to learn. Let's go into the antecedents, historical antecedents. Most of the matches we have lost, we normally lose those matches 85th minute, 87th minute. So there must be something wrong with our football philosophy. So what I had expected, you know, the leaders to do is to find out why. Is it that they tire out towards the end? And like the Honorable Minister said, somebody like Iwobi, if you go through FIFA ranking, it's about the most tactical player that we have. You keep him on the bench till the 88 minutes. What's he coming to do? So we really need to develop our sports. It's not just by winning competitions. What we need to do is to have a long-term plan, because most times coaches are given, you know, they say get to semi-finals. No. What you should do is allow a coach maybe a 6-7 years plan and say, okay, after that, let us have a football philosophy. What is this team known for? The Brazilians are known for jogo bonito. What are we known for? Those days, we normally play from the flanks. You know, we pull all our balls, and there's always a Yakini to put our Siasia to nod. But now, we do not, you cannot identify our play pattern. So, if all they have said, if we are able to, you know, collect them and let the handlers, you know, look at them. And another thing, incidentally, I was in the technical committee some years back. I saw a report written by Cerezo Eguavo. Eguavo said, until we start having minimum educational requirements for the national team, our national team will never be good.
Very true.
Because at times, you come to the national team, you know, we begin to teach the basics in the national team. You know, the national team is just tactics. That is what is expected of coaches to teach, not to teach how to trap the ball. Or you understand what I'm saying? So we have a lot of problems. It's not something we can just itemize here.
But then, is the future bright for this team?
Oh yeah, sure. Honestly, I see some positive things. You know, for the first time, we have an average age, let's say the team average of 22, 23 years. Unlike before, we have a lot of people within our age brackets coming to play for the Spurs.
All right. Mario, you think
Oh, yes, no,
something
true. Like Tony Eluwele said, is true. And you see, Nigeria is so blessed. Nigeria is littered with, you know, some of the, you know, well-gifted footballers, you know. I don't know. You see, we keep saying that Brazil brings out, you know, footballers that have, you know, could be said to come from the moon. But I'm telling you that Nigeria is gifted with talented footballers. You know, even those that went to Russia, are we really sure they are the best that we took to Russia? Yeah. Frankly, you know, because if you see the talents that are bound in Nigeria, you will be amazed, as if they talk to, you know, this ball, you know. So I think that the future is very, very bright for Nigeria, especially if we are able to put our acts right in terms of the administration of the game, you know, and then get the right, you know, caliber of coaches, you know, to handle the team. I was one of those that felt, you know, because Eguavo, when he was handling the team, he lost only a match. I remember we were in Egypt. semi-finals. And because there was crisis in the team. And fortunately at that time, I had told the people in charge, I said, look, there's a problem in this team. And it was found out that yes, the problem really existed. And that cost us that match, and we lost in the semi-finals. So Egovon at a point in time was what I felt is he would have been a coach to have been able to be built as a local, as one of the coaches from within Nigeria to be able to take this team further. He had all the pedigree. Out of all the matches he played, he never lost a match until that semi-finals, and he was kicked out. So we must get the right caliber of coaches to be able to tap into all the players that we have, and those coaches must go around the match venues in Nigeria to be able to get these players.
Right. Administration is one word you use, and we're going to note it down somewhere because we'll come to it shortly. But Jide, this team and the future.
Sincerely speaking, when it comes to the issue of playing philosophy, Father Tico took a Nigerian team to Brazil to play, and he lost 3 matches in a row, all within the last 10 minutes. And he realized our physiology was too massive to be carried along and be running all over the place. He brought back the idea. When he came back, they had to call the coaches in the National Institute for Sports, and they had to now design this attitude of slow building from the defense to the attack. And that was what we played on up to the 90s. Why suddenly did we abandon that play pattern and now decided to go the European? And our physiology does not suit that. These are issues that, under normal circumstances, where administration is correct and the coach has a semblance of rest of mind, that I have a contract I can work with over a long time, these issues will crop up and will be sorted out. We really need to go back if there are drawing boards that are still left.
All right. So, Minister, we come back to you. And, well, quickly first, you think there's a future for this team?
There's a very great future for football, if we get it right. You see, we have been playing football over the years instead of growing football. And the entire philosophy of football is to grow football. Yeah. And if we do not grow football in Nigeria, we will keep having these issues off and on and coming to try to explain and excuses left, right, and center. But there is a major problem I've identified with the administration of football in Nigeria. You cannot have a company where a man has no shares and is a stakeholder.
All right. So that brings us to the administration, which we noted here. First, let's just ask, what is the status, what is the position today? Because even before the team left Russia, what had been brewing for some time came to the fore. And this is an unending story in the NFF, NFA. What is it? What is the position now? This conflict.
Well, thank you very much. The Nigerian Football Association is known to Nigerian law by Decree 101. Nigerian Football Federation is a technical convenience which was packaged to save Nigeria, I think around 2010 or so, when the country came under serious threat from FIFA because of lack of domestication of the FIFA statute. And so government, from what I saw in the records, wrote FIFA that, well, we are going to comply, give us time to domesticate the statute. And as I'm talking to you now, FIFA status has not been domesticated in Nigeria. Even the Nigerian Football Federation Act is still not law in Nigeria. When I came in, I was invited by the National Assembly when I raised the issue of the legal status of NFL. And the National Assembly challenged my position why I was saying that NFF was not known to Nigerian law. So I asked them a simple question. All the laws in Nigeria are documented. Can they assist me to refer me to where I can find the NFF Act? And the next question they asked was, so do I mean that they have been appropriating money illegally to NFF? And I asked them a question. I said, permit me to answer with a question. Have you ever appropriated money to Sabongida Farmers Association? They said no. So why were you appropriating money to NFF? Because every organization that you are appropriating government funds to in a constitutional democracy must be backed by law. Which law did the National Assembly, or is the National Assembly using to appropriate funds to NFF? So the status of the Nigerian Football Federation is that, yes, NFF, we played with FIFA to be safe so that we can address the issue, but as I'm talking to you, it has not been addressed.
Well, of course, because it would seem that nothing was addressed. There's just a change of name. There are, football organs all over the world which still carry. It would seem that association is a thing and federation is it, but it's not. You have association all over the world. So many countries still carry association.
Oh yeah,
the English FA.
English FA Association.
Yeah. Basically, let us also tell ourselves the truth. You see, there was a sort of a power play in Nigeria, and that power play is what is playing out since then. About 12 years ago, it's still playing out. You see, those who wanted to assess leadership position came with the question of NFF and sought to displace NFA. They succeeded, but that crisis kept lingering. And let me tell you that it's a valid court judgment declaring NFF illegal.
Justice Okorowo's judgment.
That's it. I was served that judgment. Valid, declaring NFF illegal. But then the leaders in the federation went and met Dr.
Samson
Jaja, who took the matter to court and said, look, we will shoot ourselves on the foot. Please, can you come for a political solution? So the man kept the judgment down. He even threatened some few days ago that he was going to dust his judgment and visit my office again. And my office has been like Syria. Hezbollah guerrillas are there, ISIS are there, Free Syrian Army are there.
Minister, but this keeps going on and on. But you talked about a political solution. But again, how do you respond to insinuations that, okay, suddenly Nigeria exited from the World Cup, and suddenly the minister remembers that there is something pending, that if Nigeria had progressed to perhaps even the semi-finals, no one would be talking about that. Is that true?
Well, that is not even correct. It's not correct. Before we left for the World Cup, the Supreme Court has handed over its judgment on the 27th of April. And I was served a copy of the judgment. Immediately I was served a copy of the judgment, I knew there was big trouble on the ground. Because if we move to implement the judgment, we will not go for the World Cup. And Nigeria has invested heavily in the World Cup. So I invited the beneficiary of the judgment, Ambassador Chris Giwa, who incidentally had not picked my calls for over 2 years because I brought him to a negotiation table which fell, and after that immediately he was banned. So he saw me as betraying him, because if I had not invited him to come for negotiation, what happened to him wouldn't have happened. So he refused to pick my call. So he came and I told him, I said, my brother, I must confess you have a valid judgment from the Supreme Court of Nigeria. But look at the interest of this country and the passion of Nigerians. Please, can you downplay the implementation of this judgment until we return from the World Cup? He agreed. We left for the World Cup. Before we leave, his lawyer went to the Federal High Court in Jos. Now roll out the judgment. Please permit me, you see, people have been arguing that the Supreme Court did not at all, because some people believe that the Supreme Court did not at all sack the Amaju-led board. This is the judgment of the Supreme Court, and this is the Chief Justice of Nigeria talking. He said, I have to point out that by restoring the suit to the court list, it means a restoration of all the orders in the proceeding in the suit, irrespective of the fact that the matter may be heard de novo before another judge. Meaning that those orders that were issued in 2014, when the matter was struck out, had now been resurrected by this particular pronouncement. So the lawyer now went to the Federal High Court and rolled out these orders. Now he rolled the orders, here are the orders here, and then served it on me. In the orders, there are about 5 orders granted by the court. The first order directed the Inspector General of Police, the Director of SSS, and the Honorable Minister of Youth and Sports, and all law enforcement agencies to recognize Giwa as the president of NFF. The second order directed the minister specifically and all his privies, my aides, anybody in my office, to do business with Giwa as the NFF president. The third order restrained Amaju and all persons purportedly to have been elected on the 30th of September 2014 from parading themselves as legitimate executive of NFF forthwith. The said election having been set aside by the order of this honorable court. And then the fifth order said the applicants, it granted an order to the first and second applicants, setting aside all acts, resolution, and all decision made or taken by the executive committee of the NFF purportedly to be elected on the 30th September 2014, including the purported ban on the executive committee elected on the 26th from all football activities as illegal, ostracized, unconstitutional, null and void.
All right. You're on safe ground. You are also a lawyer yourself, aren't you?
Let me come back to the issue of how this. So, this he agreed and we downplayed it. Now, I sent all this to the Attorney General for advice after discussing with him. Now, the Attorney General, on return from the World Cup on the 26th of June, this is his letter to me, and this is the advice of the Attorney General. He said, it is tried law that court orders are sacrosanct, and any act of disobedience to it constitutes a threat to the rule of law. Consequent upon the above, you are hereby advised to comply with the orders of court made therein, which for now is the valid and binding order of court, in absence of any other substituting order or judgment to the contrary. So this advice from the Attorney General came when we returned from the World Cup. And on my return too, I was served a contempt proceedings from the same court because I have delayed from 27 to around this 26, the court administered, they brought contempt proceedings. So because I wouldn't want to go to Kuje, people go to Kuje because of billions. I cannot go to Kuje because of disobedience of court order, more so that I am a lawyer. If I leave office as a minister, I'm still going to practice. If I don't go to court for myself, I will go to court on behalf of a Nigerian who is seeking for justice. Will I be morally right to approach the Nigerian court having disobeyed court order to ask for justice for a Nigerian? This is the predicament where Solomon Talon found himself.
All right. We have callers on the line already. It's a subject that everyone would want to contribute to. So let's try to get out of... We'll get our first call on the line from Yakubu, calling in from Mina. Hello, Yakubu.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello?
Go ahead, Yakubu.
Yes, are you hearing me?
Yes, we are. Go ahead.
Hello? Yes, go ahead. Good evening. How are you, Chris? Yes. Serious. Good evening. Good evening, Honorable Minister. Good evening, panelists.
Yes, just go straight to the point.
I'm so pleased, listening to all your conversations. And what I have to say has to do with the recent performance of the Eagles at the just concluded World Cup. One, my concern is that I don't know what Nigerian Football Federation is doing about the brazen robbing they did to the Eagles as far as penalties that some of our players protested at the field. And I was thinking that there will be a formal complaint from NFF of Nigeria to the World Football Body, that is FIFA, about the way we are being robbed as far as the penalty issues were concerned. Secondly, my concern all these years has been the issue of the lopsidedness of the players that are playing for the national team. I'm not a tribalist, but I believe, as one of the panelists has actually said, we have a lot of talents abound in Nigeria. But you find out that most of our national teams, I'm sorry to say, are from the South-South. And I believe all over this country, we have talent abound. And I want to suggest that in future, at least maybe all the zones, the political zones of this country should be traversed to find out the talent and bring them together. And I believe if that is done, believe in me sincerely, we will have the best talent as far as footballers are concerned in this country. Thank you very much. I don't want to take too much of your time.
All right, thank you, Yakubu. Well, you heard the man. Should we introduce federal character in football?
No, I think, you see, I'm lucky to have also played as an athlete, and I've also managed a club. If you must get the best of players from one family, go ahead and take them. It's about talent and it's about passion. We don't have to restrict ourselves to the federal character things because we want to make balance. And truthfully, I don't think I have seen anywhere where any coach in this country has tilted towards any ethnic direction for any reason. The coach does not want to lose any match. He also wants to win because he wants to make name. So they usually go for the very best of players. As far as I know, we have always given Nigerians the very best of opportunities to represent us.
All right.
And I think, added to what he has said, federal character does not play any role in sports development. But by and large, like I said, I think we need somebody, or we need a system, monitoring system, where we can have coaches to go around our playing arena to look out for talents. I believe that we can get a lot of very good footballers, talented footballers from around the country. And like he said in his remark, the penalty shout against Argentina was not a penalty, because we took time to ask a question and we said, look, the ball touched his hand. But then we were told that there are technical briefing, before the World Cup. Yeah. And the rule now is that if the ball touches any part of your body before your hand, it's not a penalty. But if the ball touches from your opponent, touches your hand directly, that is where it's a penalty. And if you notice the Argentina match, it was from his head that it went to his hand.
Well, some fans cite a similar incident in an earlier match where the referee gave a penalty, didn't give a penalty.
Yeah.
All right.
So the same with our own, that he did give a penalty as well.
Okay, but they said something like that had happened before in an earlier match.
No, but there is a rule too that also guides the referee.
Yes.
And incidentally, that rule is just standing on its own. It's discretion.
And don't forget, yes, he went to the VAR.
Discretion.
He went to the video assistant referee to look at it very critically.
Well, bottom line is, even with the video assistant referee, discretion is still on the part of the referee.
Exactly.
Yes.
But to add to what they have said, you see, there is need for us to have a designed system where we go around the country. Well, let's take, for instance, in the recent past, I don't think our national team coaches have gone around the country looking for players in the recent past. But when Westhoff was there was this plan that he visited venues.
League venues.
Yeah. Every venue, he was there.
Yes.
Rather than go around the country looking for players. You see, and also I don't blame Nigerians because of their sentiments. A lot of us feel that, that we know so much about football, that whatever is done at the full glare of it, there must be something wrong with it. You know, no coach, a coach. There was a time in Jos you had the Atuebu brothers.
Yes.
Aloysius Atuebu and
Andrew.
Andrew Atuebu. They were four.
The Mohammeds.
They have the Mohammeds. They have the Mokochas. Yes. Nam the Mokocha, that's Kamel, with his brothers. You know, so I don't really think that any coach has really, you know, willfully tilted towards a particular section of the country.
Oh, all right, thanks for that.
But you know, failure is an orphan. Success has so many parents. The issue of talking about federal character, I don't think is necessary in building up a national team. But I concede to the fact that there is a need for the federation and the technical crew or technical team to go around the country and avail Nigerians the opportunity to showcase their best. Let me tell you something that happened in Kaduna. We went for an athletics competition in Kaduna. And then somebody, a young person was standing watching people running, and he said, no, these people cannot run. I said, what do you mean? He said, these people cannot run. And these are athletes. So, okay, can you come and join? He joined. And then he beat them. But when we wore spikes on him, he couldn't run. Now, the challenge is that we have not even scratched the talent.
Yes.
No, we haven't.
We haven't.
We haven't.
So this is what is responsible for the complaint you are hearing. If you avail Nigerians the opportunity to showcase their best, and then you select, you can even bring from the same family, the team, Nigerians will line up behind you.
So which way? The NFF or NFA, whichever we prefer to call it now, you say the ministry set up a reconciliation committee. So what is the status? What is going to happen next? Who is in charge of Football House?
Well, based on the decision of the Federal High Court in Jos, Ambassador Chris Giwa is the president of Nigerian Football Federation. And in the eyes of the law, the Amaju group never even existed at all.
Right, but how do you now reconcile that with events that occurred? There was a time security operatives went to Glass House, were going to forcefully evict one group and another, and it would seem as if the minister either was not in the know, or what about the talk of Nigeria, being at risk of FIFA, sanctions?
No, thank you sincerely. You see, despite how illegality is clothed, even with the robe of a reverend father, it can never change its status. I still maintain and emphasize that, the security invasion of the Glass House by whosoever is responsible was an act of illegality. And they were touting the name of the president of Nigeria, which I immediately came on air and said, the president of Nigeria, whom I know, cannot direct anybody to disobey court order. So, the security that went there is part of what we will refer to as security excesses. It is unjustifiable. They do not have any business. If they had wanted to evict the man, Chris Giwa, they should go to the Federal High Court in Jos. There are laid-down procedures. Go and apply for the vacation of the order. Once the order is vacated, I will even discontinue relating with Giwa as the president of NFF. Then let's come back to the issue of FIFA ban. You see, FIFA ban is being campaigned by Nigerians who have vested interest in the crisis. They are the ones going about shouting. I have never heard FIFA campaigning like those people. But again, FIFA is going to ban Nigeria for what? I've been asking this innocent question and nobody seems to have answered it. Is FIFA going to ban Nigeria because members of the football family took themselves to court? Myself, who is even an innocent person, was dragged by the same members of their family to court and met a defendant. And then judgment came out from the court. Is that what they are referring to it as interference.
All right. But they also say that when it comes to sports, then there is a specialized court for that. And FIFA
Yeah,
does
there
not
is a
recognize.
specialized court of arbitration. But the matter, you see, there's one thing again that Nigerians have been misinformed about this crisis. The issue that went to the court of arbitration was when Sepp Blatter, the then FIFA president, wrote and congratulated Amaju after his election. Chris Giwa took FIFA to the court of arbitration that they have taken side. His own election preceded that of Amaju, but they did not congratulate him. Why did they congratulate the Amaju group? And Sepp Blatter went to the court of arbitration to say, look, I wrote that letter as Sepp Blatter, not on behalf of FIFA. In that same judgment, the court of arbitration said, issue of election are within the jurisdiction of national laws. It is in that judgment.
Yes, they are internal to
They are internal,
nations.
yes, to national laws. Meaning that the question of elections which took place within the territory of a country are subject of the laws of that country. When you look at the preamble of the Nigerian Football Association statute, which has not been domesticated, he said it is an organization incorporated in Nigeria in accordance with Nigerian
of the land.
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Well, Jide, what do you say to all this?
Truth of it, sir, is for a long time we have not learned how to obey our own statutes. Two, we had an election in Kano in 2006, which was free and fair and was monitored and observed by FIFA. A week later, another election was held in Abuja. Then what happened to the election in Kano? Ever since that day, justice had run away from Nigerian football.
Right. Well, quickly for you.
Well, I have been involved in virtually all the elections.
And all the crises.
And all the crises, as a matter of fact. And like Jide said, we missed it during Galadima's time. We had no reason to remove Galadima from office. We had no reason whatsoever. And I think, like a lot of people say, maybe it's Galadima's cause that is following us. But I wouldn't say so, you know. But frankly speaking, I think we got it disjointed from Galadima's era.
Yes.
And after that, it has been a rollover effect from Galadima to Sanilulu. Sanilulu was impeached. From Sanilulu to Megari, Megari was impeached. Now we have this. But you see, going into this Giwa crisis, I wouldn't want to take side because I'm one of the stakeholders that the Honorable Minister felt it didn't fit for us to come and reconcile the situation as a whole. But you see, I can tell you the history of both elections, of Giwa's election and Amaju's election. If you will disqualify one, you must disqualify the other. If you disqualify one, you must disqualify the other. And so if that be the case...
No, but we never really even followed our own
exactly,
laws.
but if that be the case, what are the procedures? You see, we say that we are accusing one faction for not following FIFA laws and the NFF statutes. But then there are adjudication processes involved that should have swept the other election away and then brought in the other election. We did not follow it.
Okay, with the political or legal solution?
No, I believe that we continue to be bedeviled by this problem unless we domesticate all these international statutes.
Exactly.
All right. So on that, we'd like to thank you, Ostel Ilumelu, Sports Administrator. Thank you for coming on this program. And we'll take a short break here. When we return, we'll be joined by another analyst on this program. Well, of course, the minister will still be here because there are so many other issues to raise with him. So stay with us on NTA Tuesday Live. We'll be back shortly.
Nigerians, our fearless officers and men of the Nigerian military are winning the war against Boko Haram. Today, all occupied territories have been recovered and Boko Haram has been degraded. Our affected brothers and sisters are getting their lives back. However, they are now after you and me. in our mosques, churches, schools, motor parks, markets, entertainment centers, and public gatherings. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me. Nigeria, unite against terrorism.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The struggle for independence had been a long and tough one. Our founding fathers and compatriots sacrificed their comfort and even shed their blood. We cannot at this point in history afford to spirit away their sacrifices for immediate but temporary gains of today. Let us emphasize what unites and not what divides us. Working for the unity of purpose with a stronger vision for a better tomorrow. NTA, growing with the nation.
Nigeria, the only country we can train with remarkable potentials to excel. Let us believe in ourselves and change our attitude for the sake of our country and generations unborn. Let us revive our cultural values, which are our essence as a nation. Let us renew the spirit of patriotism and hope in our dear country. Do not take or give bribe. Be punctual always. No more African time. We can't expect to be global citizens and operate on African time. Join the queue. Insist that people are attended to on a first-come basis, no matter who they are or where they come from.
Nigeria, good people, great nation.
Make you report any crooked person, object or wakajube movement to police and security agent demo.
The security of our nation now work for all of us, so plus including me and you.
Nigeria, make we unite against terrorism. Now, Federal Ministry of Information and Culture bring on this message.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying with us. It's still talking about sports. And we took out the cameras as usual, and let's hear what the people have to say.
Get the right people in the right place. Even in picking players, you don't need to put somebody that you know. Look at what France did. France used Africans to win World Cup. So it's different. So in developing sport, there should be a will by the government and partner with private sectors.
We should start from the scratch. Go to the grassroots, get the young ones, teach them. Like if you go to Brazil, there's a colony, there's a school meant for teaching the young ones up to professional level. In fact, in Nigeria, we have the best footballers from the childhood to the old. Now, it's lack of encouraging the young ones. By encouragement here, I mean the young one needs football facilities. Apart from that, there should be discipline.
We are good in, let me say, basketball. We are trying basketball. At least in Africa, we are rated as one of the people that do well in basketball. Then other areas we can still develop, like lawn tennis. Serena Williams, the Williams family are millionaires now because of lawn tennis. Golf, who is richer than Tiger Woods in Nigeria as far as sports is concerned. So other sports should also be developed so that it will rise like that of football.
Catching the younger ones from the primary level, like for instance, the primary school, the secondary school, and I think to the university, we can be able to, like, if we get those younger ones and encourage them.
Funding, sports have to be adequately funded. If it's not funded, properly funded, forget about it. Because sports is a unifying factor in Nigeria. It's a thing that unites everybody, whether you have Arab, Hausa, Igbo, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Individuals that has money, the billionaires, the millionaires, they create the enablement environment for other people to key in. All those people that has money in the burial ground, who don't know what to do with money. They can bring out that money from burial ground and put it in sports. You understand?
The voice of the people. Well, we've just been joined by another analyst here, Shuaibu Garagumbi. He's former chairman of Gumbi State Football Association. Thanks for joining us here on this platter.
Thank you, Cyril.
Well, you probably have been listening to what has been going on, the discussion, particularly about the NFF. And I know you always prefer to call it the NFE. And we're talking about the crisis. How can Nigeria get out of this recurring crisis in football?
Well, it's unfortunate we found ourselves in this situation. And I think what we need to do right now is the talk is getting too much. We have to find a way out, which, as far as I'm concerned, what we need now is to apply a doctrine of necessity. Someone has a court order in his hands, but there are no stakeholders for him to work with. And that is why I pity Ambassador Giwa, who has the court order with him. First and foremost, he needs CAF and he needs FIFA to work with. These bodies are not with him. And you cannot operate a Rome Football Federation in your country without these bodies. Here at home, the Congress are not with him. You have a Congress who are not with him. How can you work? You have a Secretary General of the Federation that is not with him. That's one office that we always tend to ignore when there is crisis. I remember in 2006, when there was crisis, you need to grab that office or the holder of that office before you can solve the problem. Because FIFA can only listen to communication from that person. Again, in 2013, when a similar incident happened, we need the Secretary General. And at some point in time, we were told he was kidnapped. He appeared from somewhere, simply because he's the same person that FIFA needs. Still now, this crisis, we need the Secretary General also to assist and to be an integral part of it to resolve this problem. Because FIFA will not listen to any communication from anybody without the Secretary General. So, with all these things that are happening, is give and take to have the political will for somebody to make sacrifice. This issue is beyond Giwa, is beyond Amaju. It's about Nigeria. So the earlier we understand that, the better.
But if you don't fix this now, it's still going to come up again. Someone, sometime in the future, someone is going to exploit whatever loopholes are.
It has always been like that.
So how do
when we have opportunity to resolve the crisis, we refuse to do it and we close our eyes. And at every given time, the stakeholders who we thought are the ones, the minister set up some elders and some stakeholders to advise him on how to get out of the crisis. Unfortunately, these same people are all part of the problem that we are calling them now to solve over time, over years.
Minister, how do you respond to that?
Well, you see, he might be correct because looking at the number of years, the historical evolution of the crisis. But again, football is a sort of a specialized passion. You cannot go and create artificial stakeholders now to come and resolve the issue. It must be those who have been in football, who know football, that will resolve the issue. So I think what basically we are trying to do is, yes, you created these problems, some of you are part of these problems, now solve the problems yourself.
As it is today, the NFF is, you know, just about a parastatal of the ministry, isn't it?
Yeah, but you see, the truth is that, you see, I look at it differently, and why I say differently is that, you know, frankly, I drove my heart for the minister. Frankly, you know, for taking the courage. He's the first minister to do this kind of exercise. You see, even when the Sports Federation's election started, he was the first minister to take the bull by the horn and to do a referendum on the statutes, I mean, or the guidelines for the elections. And when this crisis started, he's the minister for sports. He cannot allow his roof to be burned by fire and watching. He needed to take actions. And what he did, like I said, is the first of its kind. You cannot wish people like Ibrahim, people like Abdulmumin Awilo away, people like Ibrahim Galadima, people like Kojo Williams, people like even Megari, and so on and so forth. You cannot, and then come to think of the Secretary Generals. You wish people like Senator away? No, these are people that I do not think that there are any better stakeholders than these people, frankly speaking. And you see, coming to the major problem we have is this, the dysfunctional status that we have, and the manner in which we approach our elections. And that is why every 4 years we have crisis. Look at it. Look at the quality of FA chairman that we have from the state. Gara Gombe was one of the best FA chairman we had. Very highly intellectual and highly productive when he was the FA chairman of Gombe. And look at the present FA chairman that we have. Can you say the same of that?
What is the pool here? Is it the benefits that accrue from being in football house? Because of football is big business, really, isn't it?
But we're not even doing the big business. That's even the biggest irony here. Because we are 180 million. If you actually can even get 10% of that population to get involved in funding football, football is going to be much bigger than we are doing now.
But why would anyone want to put their money into something that is, always in crisis situation?
You are even looking at corporate funding now. We are even looking at community funding. When it comes to community funding, it's about the people themselves who own the game, who put their money where their heart is. I mean, take the case of the Senior African Athletics Championship in Asaba. People paid to come and watch athletics. And much more people who wanted to come into the stadium with their money could not even come in. If you have a football club, for instance, and people have to pay to own the club, people have to do community lottery, people have to also put their money in what they want themselves. Fine. And that's the problem with Nigerian football. At the local levels, the people don't own the game. And that's why you find out that the commissioner for sports in a particular state will bring his friends and put them in the FA. And that is the quality of the people who now go as delegates to the NFF elections. Now, some of these FA chairmen do not even know the difference between a corner kick and a spot kick. So, you ask yourself, how do we recruit this quality of people to come and manage football at the national level? Is that the quality of human resources in our sport in the country?
All right, back to the phones now. We have a caller from Onitsha. Is Ambrose calling in. Hello. Ambrose, turn down the volume of your TV. We have said this over and over again.
Good evening, Mr. Sever.
Yes, good evening.
I want to congratulate you for the program and
oh dear. Ambrose, we said at the start of this program, turn down the volume of your TV.
Yeah. I want to comment on what Alhaji Gara Gombe just said about the fact that this thing continues and am I hearing your voice, sir? What Alhaji Gara Gombe said about the recurrence of the crisis because the parties are not the man that has the court order cannot get this other party.
All right, we're having challenges there listening to him, but
there is something raised by Gara Gombe which is very, very important about, and he talked about the doctrine of necessity and the inability of the beneficiary of the court judgment to take benefit of his judgment in view of the fact that some of the major stakeholders are not with him, CAF is not with him, FIFA is not with him. Well, that is quite correct. But you see, we are now sandwiched between our national laws and the statute of an international organization. Sometimes we have to look at these things passionately. I agree that there is a need, which I have also told the two parties, that you see, you only need a political solution to solve this problem. And this political solution requires members of the family to admit that we are family members. Let us drop all our differences, what has happened in the past, what we have done to each other, and move forward. But anybody laying claim to try to play the big brother on the other will definitely not resolve the issue. But it is going to be impossible for anybody to say, okay, he has taken the judgment and stakeholders will not do business with him. What will you do with the Nigerian court? Because the court will definitely roll out from 48 and 49 against anybody. And if you are picked and jailed in Nigeria, FIFA will not come. FIFA doesn't even have a country here. So this is the predicament we found ourselves. So I agree with him that there is a need for us, for the major stakeholders to come together and try to bury this issue in the interest of football.
All these stem from elections, right? But so what is how do you get to become, to get into the assembly in the first place before you can even participate?
Let's face this. Mistakes are made already. Mistakes are made. Court orders had been disobeyed. No doubt about it. But the day you accept to be part of FIFA, you must be ready to play down some of your rights. Agreed, the Constitution of Nigeria is supreme. Whenever it is in conflict with any other international law, our Constitution takes precedence. But in the same FIFA status is very clear about obligations and operations of federations in our own localities. And for that to be effective, we need to domesticate that FIFA laws, which we have not. So every year we kept on experimenting, thinking we are getting over it, and it comes back to haunt us. And that is where we are till today. Now, because perhaps the other side are smarter, they had already gone and caged FIFA. They have CAF on their own side. Minister is saying now that if somebody commits anything against the court pronouncement, he may risk going to jail. As you know, the same people who had a congress in Benin, what happened? Where was the court judgment? If we have a court judgment, why should there be a congress in Benin and they pass some resolutions which are effective? We have been part of the same circumstances where we pass resolution at Congress and we send the FIFA. FIFA listen because it's the highest decision-making body. So all this one that we are talking, if we are really serious about ensuring that that court judgment works or is going to work in Nigeria, if we are not just trying to be experimenting and we're without going nowhere, that Congress in Benin shouldn't have taken. And those guys are smart. They have did a Congress, they have passed it, everybody sign it, accept it, publicize it, and that is it. So we can't just sit down here pretending as if things are okay. They are not okay.
So there's no way out of this?
No, there is. You see, Cyril, we have a lot of examples littered around. Going to the World Cup, a Swedish player was banned. Yeah. He went to a court, a regular court in Sweden, got a judgment, and he played. After our World Cup in 2010,
Guerrera,
yes,
the captain of Peru.
Yes. Then after the 2010 World Cup in South Africa, when the French national team were in disarray, the French government did a far-reaching reform. FIFA wanted to intervene. I said, no, we're going to ban you. He said, okay, come and take the national team. We spend over 4 million euro, 4 billion every year. Take it, we've given you. FIFA kept quiet. Now, Cameroon. What happened? Cameroon excused themselves from FIFA. When there was this recording crisis like in Nigeria, Cameroon excused itself and said, FIFA, look, we are taking this ban. We need to reform our house. They took ban for 6 months. They fixed their house. They came back. But Lagara Gomez said, we are caught between a the devil. You know, you understand? You understand? And we must get out of it. And let me tell you the truth. For everybody who calls the minister to accuse the minister, I keep saying, the vision that he has, you don't have it. Set up this committee. The minister did not say, give Giwa. He didn't tell the committee, give Giwa this. Or he didn't tell them, give Amaju this. He said, please, I want a workable solution away from this crisis. And like Garagobe said, Nigeria must come out of it the winner. And Nigeria is bigger than every other person.
All right. Let's go to the phones now. We have a caller from Kaduna. Oh, from Katsina. I beg your pardon. A caller from Katsina. Okay. So, hello.
Hello?
Yes, go right ahead.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. Your name is on screen. Go on.
Hello?
Well.
Hello? Please permit me to talk about 3 points. I want to talk about 3 points here. Selection of the national team. Selection of the national team, the administration, and the factors affecting football growth in Nigeria. One, the factor affecting the selection of our team in Nigeria the factors are one, we don't go around. I was a FIFA referee, and there was a time I was in Port Harcourt officiating a match of Eagles on Sunday. I finished. I came back to Zaria, and then on Tuesday I went to I met Westerhoff at Port Harcourt. Then on Tuesday I went to Maiduguri to officiate a match, El Kanema match in Maiduguri. And I still met Westerhoff there. And that gave him the opportunity of selecting excellent players all over the federation. Forget about national character, go round. He selected a team that would have never had a team like that. We know it. But these people are not go around. If you are an ex-player, your brother must come into the national team. How did we get our coach, national coach? He was recommended to Nigeria by Arsene Wenger. Why did Arsene Wenger recommend a coach for us? Because Amaju is a strong supporter of Arsenal. Let's get a reputable coach. We are Nigeria. Out of over 50 something members of FIFA in African countries in Africa, none of them is greater than Nigeria. Let's go around. We have about how many National Commission zones in Nigeria? Kaduna is one, Bauchi is one, Kwara is one, Ingu is one. Let's have a mini festival in all these zones. There are people that are ready to sponsor this small tournament. Then let's bring this zone together. Make a small festival again. Select fantastic teams. Which means in each zone we will have a team that we can call upon at any time. Then when it comes to administration, we are hungry. This is football, where people want to make money. Corruption. Corruption from administration to refereeing to everything there.
Very true.
Yes. How much does people pay state FA chairman to elect FA president? Our football is being mad.
All right.
Destroyed because of corruption.
Okay.
If you don't pay referee, you don't get anything.
Okay.
The members of NFF Referees Committee are all jobless. They don't have means of livelihood.
That is true.
I was a national training officer. I stepped aside. NRA national training officer. I stepped aside because of corruption.
Okay.
You train somebody on a very serious note.
All right.
Zira is there. What happened to your team when you were denied going to Premier League?
Yeah.
You remember?
Yeah.
Yes. Why? You want a referee wants to make $1 million if you go for any match. How do they appoint him to come? These are people who are jobless, who have no means of livelihood, who are relying on appointment. You call them, they do appointment, you give them a last, and so the referees they are appointed. If you look at it, the better and good referees, some will have 12 matches, where some will have only 2.
Very true.
When I was a member of the NFF Referees Committee, this man from Sokoto was our chairman. We look at the people who are shortlisted for the Premier League, and we would give everybody 3 matches. Then from there, we judge your performance. 1, your performance will help you out. 2, your morality will be the second one before that will determine how you continue.
Okay. All right. Thank you so very much. You've raised up so many issues, and I mean, we're going to put them here because speaking about corruption, for instance, Minister, have you heard them talk about NFF accounts not being audited by independent firms, or have they even been published in dailies? Have they been verified? Have you heard those allegations?
Sponsorship monies.
Well,
sponsorship monies.
Well, I may not be able to talk much on it because currently there are issues with the account of NFF that is being investigated. So if I'm going to make statement, I might run the risk of undermining the process.
So at least we acknowledge that there are issues.
No, there are issues. There are issues with the accounts, and it was as a result of a petition submitted by one member of the technical committee that petitioned the anti-graft agency. And the anti-graft agency has been on the neck of the ministry and NFF on the issue. So we wait for them to turn in their report, and we'll know where we pick from there.
Can, as it is now, can the government, well, through the sports ministry, stop funding NFF? Can it stand on its own?
No.
So it continues to be.
I don't think so.
Now, the question here, maybe Garagumbe, you can take on this one. Is it right to put your money into something and not have the powers to find out how that money is being used?
Yes, sorry, Siri, before I get to that, let me just chip in something about the examples that have been cited about other cases for players that go to courts or whatever to win it. They are in a different circumstances, different operating environment. Their judicial system different from our own. Their system, Congress system, or whatever administration, everything is different from our own. We are in a different world of our own. They are in a different world. Because a player goes to Switzerland and win a case in court, that doesn't mean that he come to Nigeria and get the same thing. Laws are not, federations in Switzerland, FIFA in Switzerland is not established by government. It's an NGO. Here it's established by government, so we're in a different circumstances. Now, coming back to this is your question, I'd always been advocating that we should have a transitional withdrawal of government funding of not only football, but sports. This corruption that we're talking about is all over sports, not only in football. It's everywhere in our sports. That is the truth. So we should have a transitional disengagement of government funding of sports and everywhere in the world. Sports is a private sector-led industry. Government only provides enabling environment. But here we have the government going in front, private sector. And because there's a trust deficit, nobody wants to bring his money. The corporate organizations want transparency, they want accountability, they want prudence, which are liking us also. No corporate body would like to come and put his own
exactly. So that's the point, isn't it?
So therefore, we must have to break. We must have to break that cycle. We must have to break that cycle, and that's why I said there is no need to go and establish football by law. If you establish football by law, what of basketball, what of handball, what of table tennis? They are all sports. So even the bill before the National Assembly to establish NFA is just a waste of time. We are just going to go back to the same vicious cycle. What we should do is to allow NFA to operate like Rotary or Red Cross, go to CAC, register as an NGO. FIFA today in Switzerland is an NGO. Anybody who wants, as a stakeholder, come and participate in it, go and look for your money. The government should come and just be giving you, perhaps, grants for your national programs. If you have a national program like a World Cup, Olympics and all that, you just be getting grant. But if you continue to fund to appropriate a subhead in our budget, National Assembly having oversight, this corruption will continue because the National Assembly, the administrators, everybody is a part of person. We don't have to single out anybody.
You know, Cyril, you see, the truth about it is that the leakages are too many. Too many. And that is why you find that people get in position of authority. They don't want to relinquish it. They don't want to relinquish it. He is the one who came and he said, look, he called a stakeholder before the national sports elections and he said, look, let's visit these laws one by one. And we put it to vote. We said the issue of term limit. What do we agree? Some people say 3 terms, some people say 4 terms, some people say 2 terms. He put it to vote. He said, okay, let's vote. The 2 terms won. You know why? Because we needed to restrict the I want to be there till I die situation, wanted to remove that. And you find that some people are there, they hold on tenaciously to these positions. They don't want to relinquish it. You know why? Because there is a lot of money. Exactly. A lot of money. You look at the way they live, ostentatiously. I mean, you see that once you become a president of anywhere, you know, their lifestyle changes. Okay. Their lifestyle changes. And it's because of these huge leakages that cannot be blocked. But perhaps we are close to doing that.
Jide, can we truly expect that our football will go beyond the stage it is right now when you cannot get your administration right? Is it possible?
It's not possible, but again, that's not to say that we cannot get it right. Over the years, we have also been told that government is a big funder. But we also know, too, that no government anywhere in the world can spend the kind of money that is in sports. The kind of money that is in sports is always in the community. And we have started an experiment that is already working. We're already moving to the next one. We have started one in Ondo State, where we're raising funds from the community to manage sports development in the community.
All right, well, let's take a breather from football now and look at other sports. Minister, I'm sure that, let's not make it seem as if he's Minister of Football.
No, but I think before we even round up, I think I agree with the submission of Gara Gombe. But except that we must recognize the fact that football is a national passion and also a heritage. Yeah. There's no way you can isolate government from it.
True.
Especially when you look at the capital-intensive nature of sporting infrastructure. There is none of the national federation that owns a sporting facility. The stadiums spread all over the country is owned by government. The massive investment by the Delta State government in putting up infrastructure is massive. So at the end of the day, you now come back and said, well, the man who has put his money into it cannot ask questions. It's impossible.
So there's still a long way to go. But moving on to other sports, and we're looking at sports development generally across sport now. And like someone had already said, you don't even have the avenues of picking people, catching them young. National sports festivals are fraught with all kinds of issues as well. What is the problem with developing sports generally in Nigeria?
The problem with the development of sports in Nigeria, when I came in, that was maybe one of the issues I looked at basically. And I discovered that our sport architecture itself is faulty.
Very faulty.
Our sports architecture is fundamentally faulty. It is an architecture that is built around, we have the 2 types of sports development model. We have the sports servicing, and then we have the sports model. Now, the sports servicing model is a pattern of administration is this approach where sport is just lying dormant. When you have competition coming up, you go around the world and scout to get athletes or players. They come and represent the country. So the target is for you to either win or lose medals. Now, That is just the service model of administration. But the developmental model of sports is this idea of taking it like a pyramid with a very broad base and a narrow end. Now, grassroots sports development becomes the major preoccupation of government and investors. Talents are identified. Companies, investors develop interest in. For example, you have maybe a bank developing interest in just one single athlete, 100 meters athlete. And they put in their money for him to be the best in the world. They spend in developing him right from the time he's identified. Now you also have a structure where people right from tender ages begin to exhibit their talent, and they are guided into the different sporting federation. That developmental model is the one that is lacking. But for all the years, we have been practicing the servicing model. So that is why each time we have a competition, we run to Nigerians in diaspora to bring them, give them passports to be Nigerians, to come. And once they lose, we stun them and send them away.
Okay, let's quickly take this call from Makudi. Alex, who's calling in from Makudi. Hello, Alex. Alex, are you there? All right, we'll just have to move on. Alex isn't ready. We don't have that much time to stay back.
Hello, good evening, sir.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello, Alex. Go ahead.
Hello. Hello, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Hello.
Your name is on screen. Alex, go on. All right. So, we're talking about sports development here. Yes, the architecture, as the minister said, has not been right. In fact, you even finding it extremely difficult to even hold a national sports festival. Every time there are issues cropping up, you know, it keeps going. It's a swinging pendulum.
Cyril, let me tell you, we lack stability in policy and even management. Nigeria has one of the highest turnover of sports ministers. From independence to now, we have more than 42 sports ministers. That is an average of 2.5 years per minister. You cannot have stability that way. What are the policies do we have? Every time we have been experimenting with different sports policy, with every single attempt, less impressive than the one preceding it. Now, if you look at, I remember there was one of the best sports development program that was developed was the 2010 Vision 2010 Sports Development Program on sports. We have the one for the 2020. There was another one by late Emeka Omerua-led Committee on Sports. There's one by General Ushola Williams. And I think there's one other one, I think by Samson Emeka Omerua. All these are programs, they are lying down somewhere, either in the ministry or in the SGF office, dusting. Whoever comes, he ignores it, he says it is his own. Every time, we never lacked the capacity to develop these policies. But the political will to implement them is not a problem. Then again, a synergy between what the sports ministry developed as a policy and the curriculum we have in the ministries of education, because they are par. Where this sports development starts is from the curriculum you have right in the primary school. When I was advisor in sports to Kano, I went to inspection of a primary school. I met a teacher who studies Islamic studies, and she's teaching physical and health education. And that physical and education, I asked her, how many lessons do you take per week? She says 24 lessons. Okay, in 24 lessons, what did you teach these children in physical and health education? She just said nothing. That whenever they just come into the field, when it is time, they just put them in the field to just run and come back. She did not study physical and health education. And the curriculum for the primary school's curriculum for physical education does not really capture sports as an integral part of the curriculum. And every time you have this review of national curriculum about sports and rest of it, it's not there. Now, when you go to UBEC, you find out that UBEC developed a sports policy, a program within UBEC framework, which the states are supposed to duplicate. They had a conference in Kaduna a few months ago. I was invited as a resource person. We look at the document that they have. Up to this moment, they are talking about funding, and every state ministry or every state primary education board has a budget for sports. Where does that one go? Because if they are talking about budget, about funding vis-a-vis the program that they have, they should try as much as possible to really locate where is this money, because you can't develop a program without having a cash backing to implement it. Again, I understand also, every local government you have in this country, every chairman of local government will tell you he has a sports budget. Then you find out that it doesn't go beyond buying balls and jerseys when it's trying to buy a pay. So we should have an integrated national program that will start right from the grassroots. Now, another area which we are getting it wrong, I am not sure about that, but I have been convinced that that provision exists, like in the universities now, where they talk about the TED fund, that 2% or 2.5% of every TED fund project in every university should be taken out for sport development in that university. When you go and ask, in higher institutions actually, when you go and ask, most of them will tell you, we don't know where this money is. Where the contractors, maybe the laws exist. But for us to invest, because basically what our main problem is about funding sports. And we have all these loopholes, and we have all these areas where we can go and tap and get this money back and bring it into sport. But there's no enforcement, no monitoring, and nobody has the political will to pursue it and make sure it comes up.
He talks about from the grassroots, from the schools, primary schools, but look around you. Take Abuja, for instance. Virtually all the schools have no fields. Even. They have
that is major problem. Facilities. That's a major problem. I remember, playing this in our primary schools. Like he said, we had all the facilities at our disposal. How much were we buying those facilities at that time? Next to nothing.
They had fields.
But yeah, exactly. We have playing fields. And then when we go out for our physical and health education period for 1 hour, we had professionals, that guide us, towards, the sports that we want to choose, to play. And look at it now. Sports in Nigeria has virtually become an elitist thing. If you want to buy, for instance now, a very good hockey stick, how much does it cost? If you want to buy a very good lawn tennis racket, it's fortune. So the thing is that I think that we also need to address this issue of how we bring in sports equipment, to make it available to the majority of Nigerians. And the only way is that there has to be, a government policy that will subsidize, the import of, facilities generally for sports, so that it makes it affordable to common man on the street. Without that, it's still a mirage.
Well, today,
I think I take a little diversion from him because, again, I'm aware that we run the Nigerian Sports Development Fund, which is a fund that was designed to raise funds to develop sports in the country. Now we have a community project in Offa in Kwara State. And incidentally, we raise these funds and domicile the funds in the community. One of the kids we started with in January last year was at the last African Youth Games, and she won gold medal in weightlifting. So, issue is, if we have a deliberate culture of raising these funds, domiciling it there. In terms of equipment, for instance, we have our friends in the United States who give us all the equipment we want in baseball. But the problem is we have to bring the equipment to the country. And when you look at the cost of bringing the equipment into the country, vis-a-vis the cost of the facility, the equipment we have gotten, is always very low.
Talent hunts, someone help me out here. The National Sports Festival, I still go back to it. When was the last time one was held?
2012.
2012?
Yeah.
It's meant to be a 2-year, to take place every 2 years, for instance. 2012 to now, what has happened? Is it, it's no longer in the books?
Well, the 2014 edition was considered to cross River State to coincide with the centenary celebration of Nigeria. But unfortunately, the state held the hosting right for so many years, without actually hosting the event. So last year, the National Council of Sports, which has the responsibility of determining the hosting right, decided to take the hosting right away from Calabar and brought it back to the federal government to own and host it in Abuja. As I'm talking to you, the main organizing committee has already advanced in terms of preparation. Abuja 2018. In December, we're going to hold the National Sport Festival. We've also secured budgetary support from government to fund it. We've also gotten a sponsor who came in. We signed an MOU with him to put in funds to sponsor the National Sports Festival, thereby taking, the burden of funding from government. So, from the MOU, we reserve the organizational power of managing the heritage, while funding comes from the private sector. So, assuringly, in 2018, we will, after so many years, unfortunately, hold the National Sports Festival. But, to sum up all that they have said about the issue of sports development, let me put it that we have to go back to the Constitution of Nigeria, which placed sports on the concurrent list. If you listen to the success stories narrated, it was all under the military rule. And under the military rule, it was a unitary system of government. So there was a single authority from the center down to the local government. But in democracy, the states are autonomous federating units, and they have concurrent powers with the government on sports. And the best that has happened since 1999 with most of our states is when election comes, they organize, they support football to play and win the league for the purpose of election. In fact, there are some states that do not even have stadium. There are schools scattered in most of the states that do not even have football field. Now, the synergy between sports and Ministry of Education, the removal of physical education from the curriculum of Ministry of Education is one of the greatest injustices that was done to sports in Nigeria. As a young person, I started athletics in the primary school, and I was a very good athlete right from my primary school. And I started doing physical education. Now, physical education, we are now struggling with the Ministry of Education for it to be reintroduced. Look at the type of licenses given to people. My house now in Guadepa can be converted into a school. From a nursery school, it will become a primary school. From a primary school, it will become a secondary school and a university. And all the students there is even no parking space for me who will be the preparator. Not to talk of any sporting facility. So you produce a generation of people that goes through nursery school to even graduating in a university without even seeing one sporting equipment. The other browse it to read about it. So that is one of the major challenges affecting this synergy and the funding he raised, because these funds exist along the funding processes in most of these agencies, but you cannot locate anywhere these funds goes to.
Well, another aspect of this, just
yes, I just want to chip in something about the National Sports Festival. You see, when you set a precedent that you cannot sustain, you get into trouble. We set up a precedent in this country where the federal government, through the Ministry of Sports, or National Sports Commission as we call it, any state that is hosting National Sports Festival, there's an amount of money they appropriate to them. Now, perhaps when this government came, maybe decides not to honor that precedent. Now, but there should be always a solution out of this. Now, if the National Council of Sports can come together, I advocated, I said, okay, why shouldn't the states that form the National Council for Sports be contributing certain percentage
to the post?
To the post, central post, domicile somewhere for National Sports Festival to the next host. If it is 100%, let the council contribute maybe 50% or 60% so that the state can. So if the federal government is not ready to put in anything, then it takes up that burden. This one that happens right from Lagos now, I understand really it's one of the friction between the federal government and the Cross River State government is that payment of the usual 500 million that you did. And sometimes even that 500 million used to disappear on transit because, I mean, it's happened. So if we cannot pay it, fine. But we must have a national sports festival.
Let's look at my constituency now. I was talking about the media. Let's start with you. You would agree, definitely, that the way the media has been involved in sports leaves a lot to be desired. There are countries where it is the media, to a large extent, drives sports, particularly football. We don't see that happening here.
It's not possible. And I think we are part of the biggest problems of Nigerian sports, especially even on our pages, from where we do our reportage. We go to the internet to bring a whole lot of foreign reports and slam on the pages and want to sell to the Nigerian audience. We don't report Nigerian athletes again. So even the Nigerian athletes don't have space on our reportage spaces. Now, beyond of this, some of us now are match commissioners, we are match assessors, secret assessors, so we get paid by the same FA that we are supposed to be watching and criticizing. So we lose our voice and will now become a part of the problem.
Same corruption, right?
And that's part of the issues we have even in the current NFF crisis. A whole lot of us have taken sides. Either you are Amaju or you are Giwa, and you don't see anything good. And when we see each other, we start to discriminate ourselves as professionals. So we, even the sports reporters, we are part of the biggest problems of sports development in the country.
No, and frankly, you know, if you read what they write on social media, you will weep, you know, for your profession, because, like Jide said, they have been so polarized. They've taken a side, and instead of being an instrument for peace, an instrument for conflict resolution, they've become the petrol in the fire that adds to the burning fire. And frankly speaking, it does not help, because if you look at the journalists, like he said, what journalists do in most parts of the world is, you know, to bring out the flaws in the system so that it can be corrected. But that's not the case. As long as I'm being paid, or as long as I'm being taken to the World Cup, or as long as I'm being taken to one tournament or the other, or as long as when I write about the minister and say the minister is this, you know, the minister says, okay, send the account number and I send this to you, you know, you keep quiet. That is the problem. And that is the problem of the media. They've so taken side that their reportage has been so damaging to our sports. And unless they have a change of attitude, unless they have, you know, the national interest at heart, I can assure you that, you know, they leave a lot to be desired.
Well, I'm sure that doesn't happen under this minister's watch.
No, but you see, I still see the media as a partner in progress, despite all the shortcomings. There was a time that one of the media organizations, every day they will write Sack Dalun. And the Sack Dalun later became what strengthened me and challenged me to work harder. So at a point in time, they stopped writing Sack Dalun. And I had to call them and say, please, you know, the fuel that makes me work is no more flowing. Why don't you continue with the campaign of Sack Dalun? You know, the media, as far as sports development, are partners. But there are some shortcomings, just like it has been identified. You see, let me tell you, I wanted, after leaving office, to go and study journalism. But the level of deterioration in terms of professionalism had so much discouraged me that I'm now thinking of leaving office to go and become a coach.
Well, perhaps, Minister, I hope you would not equate the new media, the social media, with trained journalists. So no, there is a difference.
No, I recognize that, but if you go online, right, you will discover that professionals have jumped into this confusion. Right. That's my concern. Okay, I have a lot of respect.
Honestly, I tend to differ to some extent from the contributors. You see, we have to call a spade a spade. We have the Newspaper Proprietors Association of Nigeria. We have the Press Council. We have the Nigerian Union of Journalists. we have the Guild of Editors and so many other bodies. What is happening to the sporting press is just a fraction of the whole. You cannot set up a media organization and you don't pay salaries. When you don't pay salaries, you expect that your employee to go and maintain his professional ethics. It's not possible. His professional ethics will be eroded completely. You don't pay him salary. It's just like keeping a wife without feeding her. She'll go and be a prostitute. Simple.
And you cannot accept morality.
That is really what is happening. So we should now forget, we should now leave or put more attention on the owners of this media organization to pay their staff, not only pay them very well. I have had, I won't say privilege, but I had an encounter with a proprietor of a newspaper, a TV station in this country. To my hearing, not that he said it somewhere. When I was one even who said, why is it that so many people are complaining about your TV station you are not paying? He said, you see all these cars here. When I employ them, they don't have it. Where did they get the money from? So how can you expect someone working in such a TV station to see black and report black? He cannot. Then when you reduce it to our own sports also, administrators contributed to it. When you see a reporter who reports something negative about you, instead of you to try to find out why is he writing it, whether what he writes about you is correct, then the next thing you try to divide. When there is any championship, even if it is in Togo, you take few that you are friends and you travel with them. Those who don't write positive about you, you now leave them. Tomorrow there's another championship, is the same thing. I have seen where a journalist will go and publish in social media that a chairman of a sports association wife gave birth and today is the naming ceremony. He put it on a social media, his own page. So I now ask, where then is the professional ethics? Are you now a journalist to promote the personal life of a chairman of a sports association or to promote sports to the larger society? And unfortunately for us, sports has come to stay as part of us. Because when you write about sports, you are talking to a driver, a mechanic, a shoe shiner, a gardener, a minister, a pamsec. Everybody now is involved in it. So if there is any little mistake or unethical behavior from the sports journalist, it goes viral.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're about to round up now, but there's this little matter which we must bring to the attention of the minister, and I'm sure he probably has heard about these allegations. It has to do with a certain $150,000 which it is claimed was mistakenly paid to the ministry by the IAAF. It is claimed that there was no AFN board at the time, and somehow no one can tell if this money actually was paid in and where it is if it was paid in. Perhaps the minister would like to.
Well, the truth about the $150,000 was that it was paid to the Athletics Federation as at the time the board was dissolved. And before the dissolution of the board, there was a sort of an athletic event in Asaba for the choice.
Wari Relay.
Yes, Wari Relays. So that was when the money was paid in. But unfortunately for the International Association of Athletic Federation, while paying the money, they were supposed to pay 15,000, as I understood.
Yes.
And then they paid 150,000. So the money was spent by the federation. The ministry does not have an account where such monies are paid into. The monies are paid into the account of the federation. Monies is managed by the federation. But I do remember that when the board was dissolved, the federation wrote to the ministry that they had pending bills to settle with from Wari Relays, from the money they got from that account. So it is not correct that the money was paid to the ministry. They don't even have control over such funds.
But then the thing is, it's that could be a slur on the nation, and its sport industry was meant to be 15,000, and 150,000 was paid. So, well, that money was spent by the federation.
The money was spent by the federation, but now the international organization is on to the federation to pay the money, and the federation doesn't have the capacity. So what we have decided in the ministry is that since it is going to embarrass the country, the ministry has taken the responsibility. In fact, we have started paying the money.
Now, if the ministry does that, what would happen to those who were responsible for putting Nigeria in this situation?
No, you see, they spend the money to organize a sporting event. The mistake is not of the federation, but of those who release the money. Because, I mean, from 15,000 to 150,000, the ministry has not been privileged. You know, some of these funds that comes into the national, the account of the National Federation, the ministry does not know. What FIFA sent into NFF, we don't know. What the type of support they get, we don't know. It is when it becomes problem
that you know
that the ministry will be responsible.
Okay. Finally, Minister, just before you come, finally, Asaba. A lot has been said about it. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Asaba, to me, was a success despite some of the lapses that we had. Yeah, it was a huge success because, I mean, for us, after a long time to host Africa, to me, it was a success. The lapses we had in terms of the flights, which led to some athletes stranded in Lagos, I investigated it, and I discovered that during the DRM, the local organizing committee told participating countries to disclose their flight details to the local organizing committee. Unfortunately, most of the countries that were stranded never disclosed their flight details when they were arriving. And we didn't have regular flights from Lagos to Asaba. The state government even went ahead to charter 2 aircraft on standby to move. But the problem was they did not disclose. Then there was this issue of athletes getting stranded because of lack of accommodation in Asaba. That too wasn't correct. What happened was that there was this insufficient manpower at the accreditation center. So when they had the pressure of so many people coming in for accreditation and they couldn't meet up, now those that came and were tired and were not close to getting attention started lying down to rest. And these were things that the pictures were taken and they became issue. So these were some of the lapses that I observed basically with Asaba.
Right, just one quick word as we round off. Judy?
We just need to thank the governor of Delta State for ensuring that that stadium was completed for posterity.
Okay, Manuel Zira.
Yeah, well, the same thing. I told the same line because I think that to have that kind of facility and to be able to host Africa and to be able to have a successful championship, I think kudos to the state government.
Okay.
Yes, for me, I'm just wondering if we do not have Delta States, we do not have rivers, we do not have Akwa Ibom and Cross River, what will happen to our sports?
Dead. Because
they are the greatest supporters and investors in our sports in the last few years. So I think there's a problem somewhere that really needs to be taken. Out of 36 states, only these 4 are taking the burden. Asaba, yes, is an experiment. At the same time, it's a success. If, they said, we are going to use that to bid for 2025. 2025, well, I wish us good luck, but there is a lot of work to be done.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as we always say, we can't exhaust all the issues on one particular program, and so we must leave this conversation here this time, and then thank all our guests for coming on. Minister of Youth and Sports Development, Solomon Dalung, it's always a pleasure to have you join us on this.
Thank you very much for the opportunity and invitation.
Thank you. And Jide Fashikum, we always love having you around. Thank you for being around on this program.
Thank you, sir.
And for Emmanuel Zira, we also appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Right. Shuaibu Garagumbe, we haven't seen you for a while now, but thanks for being here tonight.
I'm defected, but I'm back.
All right. Well, we're in the area of defection. Yes. It is that era. It is that time. Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you so much. I thought you went on sabbatical, not defection.
And, well, thank you to you two for being part of this program. And next week we'll reach you again on NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stober. Bye for now.